And it starts.
We begin here at 10 with breaking news. Migrants who were staying at the 5th District Police Station say they are spending the night outside in frigid temperatures.
They tell us they were forced to leave and take their belongings with them. CBS 2's Gonzalez.
So it looks like migrants in Chicago once again are now being told that we can no longer house you, which of course is exactly what's been going on and exactly what I said was going to happen, especially with winter on its way. And of course, you're going to see this in New York City here real soon, which, by the way, this video was meant to talk about the situation in New York, where it is that 2,500 police officers over the past year have resigned. Kind of wonder why that's the case, especially given the fact that now you have 5 more classes of the NYPD getting cut, which should automatically raise some alarm bells, especially given the fact that you also have a mayor that's currently under federal investigation because he's been begging the Biden administration for all kinds of money to help deal with the situation. And as I have said on multiple occasions, the jealousy factor is, in fact, on its way. However, some things have been put in place that, quite frankly, are a little bit surprising about this. But before we go any further on the police supposedly booting the migrants out, there's definitely a lot more here to this situation than one might would think. Let's go ahead and roll this first part.
We begin here at 10 with breaking news. Migrants who were staying at the 5th District Police Station say they are spending the night outside in frigid temperatures.
They tell us they were forced to leave and take their belongings with them. CBS 2's Gonzalez is live in front of that police station in Pullman tonight. Maribel.
Yeah, that moment was caught on camera and then sent to us. The migrants that are here, as you can see behind me, right now are setting up their beds outside, some of them without a tent, just sleeping on the floor in the cold temperatures. You can also see some of them going in and out of the station lobby, but they tell us they're not allowed to spend the night there.
This is not a game.
Video sent to CBS 2 appears to show an officer from the 5th District Police Station in Pullman telling migrants staying in their lobby to leave.
I want everybody out the station, out this lobby, all this junk out of here.
Junk referring to their belongings. Volunteers who work with migrants here telling us this comes after some of the asylum seekers were taken to a shelter Tuesday. According to them, those who didn't go were told by the officer they could no longer sleep in the lobby despite the frigid temperatures. Some of the migrants we spoke to say there was no more room for them. Others, like this man, didn't want to stay at a shelter. They say this feels like retaliation for staying. We asked Chicago police about this video and if their policy on allowing migrants to sleep in their lobbies has changed. They didn't provide comment, only referring us to the Office of Emergency Management and Communications. We're waiting to hear back from them.
I don't know for sure, but this is what I heard.
Okay.
That they got kicked out.
After hearing the migrants might have to spend the night outdoors, volunteer Jenny Leal and her sister scrambled to find an apartment where some of them could stay. They were able to take in 4 migrants tonight.
A harsh break for them, you know. They're out here in the cold, and this shouldn't be. This shouldn't be for anybody. We serve the homeless in Chicago, too.
The migrants say they want work permits to be able to move into their own places. And although they say they're thankful to the officers who've allowed them to stay here so far, they say the way they're being asked to leave and stay out in the cold is inhumane.
No nos pueden tirar como animales afuera.
Now, starting tomorrow, a network of 17 churches citywide will be taking in around 100 migrants into their spaces, providing them with temporary shelter. Volunteers here tell me this could be one of the reasons why the police stations are asking the migrants to leave. Reporting live in
Now, guys, I did a video on Wednesday talking about this situation, especially involving the churches. There was a very small bit that was mentioned there. So obviously some things are being taken out of context. You probably saw the video there where apparently some cop was telling these people that they needed to leave. And of course, there's a lot more to this situation than one might would think. Now, I want to go ahead and say this because I learned this when I was in BLET the second time I was in the academy, because we did a class on how to handle the media and stuff. And of course, I've talked to police officers about this. Of course, I've never been a cop or anything. I just went through the academy, graduated, never really got hired or anything like that. But That does not make me a cop or anything like this, so don't think for a second that I am, because I'm not professing to be one or anything like that. And of course, I have told you guys before that I've kind of backed off the whole pro-police thing for a multitude of reasons, but I now see it more as a necessity. But there is one thing that you can always believe, especially when it comes to the media, especially the liberal media, and I have no idea exactly how CBS or ABC Chicago really and truly swings, but still at the same time I've been informed of how New York media swings, and I already know how that situation goes with them, especially sports media. But still, we all know that the media typically tends to swing left, and even conservative media typically tends to leave some things out. That's why I don't trust these people. But the thing is this right here. One thing that police officers said over and over and over again, especially during that class, was that the line from the movie Training Day about 90% of what's printed inside the newspaper, especially about police officers, is a complete total BS. So why in the world are these migrants being pushed out? Well, it's because of what I mentioned in the video that I had posted earlier today. The churches are taking a lot of these people in. I talked about the fact that the churches are going to have a strain put on them here in the near future. And of course, you've got people who are obviously upset. Now, about those facilities. Now, we'll get to the facilities that they're trying to move these migrants into, which, by the way, are being handled by the taxpayers' dime, meaning that the taxpayers are in fact paying for them. And of course, to go on top of the taxpayers paying for this situation, the place that they have chosen to put these migrants at is not exactly what we call safe ground. So if you're looking at the possibility of migrants, especially those who came post July the 21st, who are upset because they're not getting the work visas, talking about heading out of Chicago, going down south, possibly back to Venezuela, in some cases going to California, basically spreading the burden around everywhere, which of course, it wouldn't surprise me if some of the bigger cities that are in red cities or some of those areas don't kind of boot these people out. But still, this also kind of disrupts the Democratic Party's game plan because of the fact they can't be found, no documentation, no government benefits, they're not going to be able to vote, which is exactly what they've been wanting these people to do. They're using them as a ploy to replace another group of people, not whites. But that right there being said, though, we got to get this next clip because the truth be told is that, of course, this situation is a lot worse than these people actually had initially prepared for.
In fact, Val, it's happening right now. Take a look over my right shoulder. 80 migrants being moved from the District 5 police station into 4 different churches across the city. This is all part of Mayor Johnson's Unity Initiative, announced yesterday. Migrants will be moving into church shelters. The migrants sleeping here at the police station have been slowly packing up their belongings this morning. 17 churches are eventually opening their doors to house and feed migrants, funded by $350,000 in private donations, no cost to the taxpayer.
Just feel like the churches are ready. They're excited to have, folks into into their churches. Again, it's not just housing, it's hope. And so that's the key, that we want to walk alongside them, work with them, establish them, move them on.
The goal is to have the migrants stay in their churches for 60 days and then hopefully transition to living on their own. Again, there are 2 buses right now here at District 5 Police Station. The pastors are hoping to raise a total of $1 million by the end of the year to help fund this effort. As of yesterday, 1,200 migrants were waiting for shelters, majority of them living at police.
Now, in the video earlier today, I also mentioned that churches stepping up and taking care of this issue is really, for the most part, the right thing to do, at least as far as they're concerned. However, the problem is this right here, as I've said in that other video, and I said it on multiple occasions, after a while, the church is going to be overloaded, and quite frankly, it's not the church's problem. Of course, the church is, in fact, the church. And I also mentioned that this right here is one of the negative one of the many things that never gets mentioned when talking about the church, because the church is always attacked by the liberal media. But of course, they're very convenient, or they see it as an absolute convenience to send migrants who, quite frankly, should be, quite frankly, back across the border. They have no qualms actually using them at any point in time. Maybe the church is being naive, or the church is simply being the church. I'm a Christian, so obviously I have an understanding of this, but still at the same time, you don't just let people come in and stay. Also, to go on top of this, once again, I mentioned in the previous video, after a while, collection plates are not going to be going to take care of the missionaries overseas. They're going to be going to take care of the bills that are being brought in. But still, after a while, you're asking the congregation to donate too much to pay for anything else, of course, that involves these migrants. Food, clothing, especially during the wintertime. After a while, it's not just going to be taxpayer dollars. It's going to be the money after taxes that people are going to be forced to pay to help take care of the situation. And of course, this is going to increase the burden on overall Chicagolanders, or people who actually live in the city of Chicago, especially in those areas. I don't think I have to talk about all the protests that have been going on. Of course, the people who've been upset about this, the people who say we should be treated first, there whether it being people of color who live in much, much poorer neighborhoods, who are upset about the fact that a lot of these migrants are getting visas, work visas, $7,000 a month in benefits, and of course they've been staying in hotels up until this point in time. So how does Chicago decide they want to remedy this entire situation? Well, they want to build a nice little camp that I've talked about in a few videos already. I'll let you guys see exactly where I'm going with this.
Tents are taking off. After months of opposition, the city is going through with its plans to build its first migrant encampment at 38th and California.
Casey Cronus is live with a look at the progress so far. Casey, how's it looking?
Anthony and Natalie, you have got to see this. Nearly 2 tents are already almost finished. Take a look. The workers are still here working to complete these structures. About 2 structures are almost up. Lights are installed, and now just to cover the frame with some type of tarp. These structures are being built by the security firm Garda World. They will be heated. There will be bathrooms, showers, and even a kitchen. City officials say the encampment could house upwards of 2,000 new arrivals. A great concern for the outspoken residents living here, who say they are worried about safety, overcrowded schools, and what is beneath the surface of the land. Formerly an industrial site, residents have told us from the start that previous attempts to utilize the lot failed because the soil was deemed unsafe. The city has done environmental testing, but still has not released those results. Just today, a spokesman with the mayor's office said, quote, details regarding environmental remediation will be provided this week.
This place has been contaminated already for years back, and I'm not talking about 10, 20, 30, 40 years. You got the railroad tracks right behind. When it rains, the water comes in. So guess what's going to end up happening? Sooner or later, people are going to end up getting sick. They're going to sue the city of Chicago, us as taxpayers, or we're going to end up paying double. They just opened up Pandora's box.
The city is paying nearly $92,000 a month to lease this lot. And while officials haven't revealed when migrants could be moving in, last month they did tell us that once the build starts, it could only be a matter of days. Reporting live in Brighton Park, Casey Cronus, Fox 32, Chicago.
Now, it sounds good on the surface, and I've said this on multiple occasions. It sounds good to house people that are coming in. I mean, these people did vote for it, and obviously I'm not okay with these people being over here because I'm in favor of legal immigration rather than illegal immigration. But here's the thing you have to understand. When you are building a place, and by the way, the very, very end, I don't know if you guys caught it or not, yeah, they're not exactly wanting to release the overall specs and overall information on this situation to let people know exactly what lies beneath the surface with this soil. You never know. Diseases, defects, things like that that could eventually pop up. As I've said before, you may be inviting a massive humanitarian crisis where some people may be getting exposed to some things that, quite frankly, they're not supposed to be getting exposed to. It's not just grown people, it's also kids, it's children, it's old people, all that type of stuff there. You are inviting a massive crisis within the borders of the United States of America because you chose to let all these people in who, quite frankly, should have remained in Mexico and sought asylum like they were originally supposed to do that. But of course, the Biden administration has got to create a brand new voter base, and that right there is what we're dealing with here. But of course, people in Chicago and people who live in the nearby suburbs are starting to see exactly what's going on here. They've actually picked up on this, and some of these places are actually starting to take action, as you guys will see here.
To come to Chicagoland, one of the largest suburbs is taking fast action to keep them out of the village. Thank you for joining us tonight at 9. I'm Dawn Hasbrook.
And I'm Anthony Ponce. Scott has the night off. The Schaumburg Village Board held a special meeting tonight and approved a new hotel tax. Fox 32's Gabriela Primus is live to explain more. Gabriela.
Yeah, Dawn, Anthony, the Village of Schaumburg Board unanimously voted tonight. They voted to approve an ordinance that would establish a tax on hotel stays of 30 days and longer.
Trustee Madej?
Aye.
Trustee Dunham?
Aye.
Trustee Sullivan?
Aye.
The idea behind the new tax is to make it too expensive for anyone to send migrants to Schaumburg's hotels. The board called Tuesday night's meeting, apparently after getting word that a migrant move was in the works. Residents we talked to have mixed reactions. Wade Ash doesn't mind having migrants moving into his northwestern suburb, but Nicole Murray was happy to hear that the village is taking action before they may come.
The migrants, they're people. We want to be able to take care of them.
I think Schaumburg is doing a good thing by being proactive with this decision that they're making now before last minute.
The village agrees, saying in tonight's agenda, the news is a concern because of the lack of a comprehensive plan for services that migrants may require. The village says it was informed that an unspecified entity was considering several suburban hotels, including 3 in Schaumburg, to house migrants. And board members responded with a strategy already being used in Rosemont. Rosemont passed to establish a tax on long-term stays if a migrant housing plan is executed. The ordinance includes the $1,000 per month tax for stays of 30 days or more.
I think it's a good thing. It's better to be proactive than reactive.
Now it is not clear what 3 hotels in Schaumburg are being considered for migrant housing. We did reach out to the village manager to do an interview tonight, but could not coordinate. One village board member did suggest that the group revisit the ordinance after the new year. Live in Schaumburg, Gabriela Primus, Fox 32.
I don't really talk much about the Chicagoland suburbs. I don't really talk much about Des Plaines and other little areas that surround Chicago. The main reason why is because I think the focal point is Chicago itself, especially for the purposes of this video. But the thing you have to understand is I've been saying this on multiple occasions in every single video that after a while this is going to eventually breed some form of jealousy. Not to mention the fact the weather is getting colder and it's only going to get colder and colder and colder the closer you get to Christmas. And by the way, the coldest months are coming post-Christmas. Chicago winters have this tendency to last from really early November, even late October in some cases, all the way into early March, some cases even early April, mid-April. It's a windy city, it's always cold, and of course everywhere you got to go in that time frame, you've got to have a heavy jacket on. The truth be told is this right here. These migrants being set outside, of course, you can't just leave them on the street in their tents, which of course was something that I warned about. Homelessness was going to go through the roof. Sanitary issues were eventually going to be a problem. And of course, this has all got to do with identity politics and the woke virtue signaling because people in the city obviously voted for this. And of course, the mayor, Brandon Johnson, he actually blames former mayor Lori Lightfoot for all these problems, even though Lori Lightfoot was pretty bad, but still at the same time, the situation has gotten much, much worse under Brandon Johnson's watch. I understand that you want to blame Master Splinter, Shredder, or Beetlejuice is what I like to call her, but still though, Brandon, you break it, you bought it, you're the one who's in office, so therefore you're the one who's on watch, so therefore you're the one who has to help fix this issue, and obviously the governor of Illinois, J.B. Pritzker, is not any better. The fact of the matter is this right here. You're looking, as I've said before, at a massive potential humanitarian crisis. And, of course, people who live in the suburban areas, they're starting to catch on to this. They don't like the idea of areas that, quite frankly, they inhabit or they pay to go stay at to be inhabited by people that they, quite frankly, probably think a little bit less rough. Once again, these suburbs also are very liberal, very, very blue, very, very dominant Democrat voting base, which also tells you everything you need to know about these people because, like in the situation with Martha's Vineyard, they always tend to show you who the hell they really and truly are once you send some people to their neighborhoods of a different color. This also proves something that I said in the identity politics video that I did, that most white classical liberals or city libs or city moderates, they want to be separated from people of color or people of other ethnicities. That is exactly how these people operate. This is kind of sort of who they are. Now, do I blame the suburban areas for doing what they did? Hell no, I don't blame them at all. I would have done the exact same thing. But of course, they're telling you exactly how they really and truly feel about this situation by putting it up to a vote and sending it to their representatives on the city council. But that right there brings me to my favorite little part of this ordeal. Now, guys, this clip is roughly 2.5, 3 minutes long. It's a relatively lengthy one. Maybe I'll try to fix it in editing, but I want you guys to pay attention to how the people on the street who are in this situation, by the way, the city is building a shelter for them, even though it's under questionable grounds. The city has given them hotels, even though the city can now no longer afford to keep them in hotels because private businesses have their own little rules. And also to go on top of that, they can't go into suburbs. And of course, they also at the exact same time are stuck in tents being pushed out of police departments, of course, because they're about to go inside churches, people of God, who are about to actually take care of these people. But make sure you guys pay very, very close attention to the interviews that you're about to see.
There are migrants still living in tents at a couple of Chicago police district stations.
WGN's Dana Rebick is at District 11 on West Harrison and joins us with more on this. Dana.
Well, I can tell you it is bitterly cold out right now. You can see behind me the warming bus has arrived here. It comes at 8 p.m. There's about 20 migrants still living at this station, and they told us when we got here earlier today that they've not been allowed inside the lobby or near the doors of the station. So during the day, they've been out in this cold until a volunteer who has worked here for a long time went inside to complain about the conditions.
So everyone is cold, everything is frozen, and there's not a lot of hope in sight.
As the city works to clear migrants from its police stations, nearly 1,100 still call them home, including Carlos from Venezuela, who has been here in Chicago for 8 days. He says he cannot tolerate these conditions. Their drinking water is frozen, ice covering the outside and inside of their tents. There are about 20 migrants still living at the 11th District, all single men.
We've known about cold weather for quite some time. It comes every year in Chicago, so this is not a shock.
Lydia Wong has been volunteering here at the Harrison Station since May and says she's disappointed in the city's response. She feels no one should be allowed to sleep outside in weather this frigid. And while the city does offer some relief with warming buses at night and transportation to warming centers during the day, she says the logistics are challenging.
They can leave for a warming center, but the problem with that is that we don't always get good notification of when people get picked up to go to shelter. So a lot of people are very hesitant to leave because if they miss their chance at shelter, it could be weeks until they get another chance to go.
The goal has been to move migrants out of police stations as winter approaches. According to the city, 8 police stations have been cleared as of Monday: Wentworth, Grand Crossing, South Chicago, Chicago Lawn, Austin, Jefferson Park, Albany Park, and Near North. Carlos says he would like to go to a shelter, but ideally get a bus ticket to Georgia, where he has family. In the meantime, he says he will wait here, layered up, and try to survive the bitter cold.
I'm not hopeful. There's been lots of time to plan, and unfortunately, the plan continues to be putting people on sidewalks.
And after that volunteer went inside to speak with staff about those migrants not being allowed inside the lobby, before the bus got here, we did notice some of them were inside warming up. This bus will stay here until 8 o'clock in the morning. We did reach out to the city. Our contact with OEMC says water is delivered here, but it is obviously so cold that it is freezing very quickly. The city says at this point they do not have any update on when they plan to get the rest
You're upset because there was no time to plan, or there was plenty of time to plan, and of course these people didn't plan. Libs don't know how to plan, and even if they do, they're very lazy about it. I mean, these are some pretty lazy people. We've been telling you guys this stuff for a very long time. Seems to me that it's actually quite inconsiderate that you decided to hop over to us and expect us to take care of you. And then the guy who's saying, I plan on going to Georgia, I'm going to layer up. I don't even know if you're even going to make it that far, dude, given the way the crime is in Chicago, especially this is the time of the year that people start coming up with fake race hoaxes. Don't let me start on Juicy Smoulier. But still at the same time, you guys kind of catch the point here that they just plan on going to the next city. It's almost like, well, I can't say it on the platform, but I'm pretty sure you guys know what I'm thinking. Now, before I answer to most of that, which I think the explanation is pretty simple when you actually boil it down, I want to say this. When I was in the Marines, I learned something throughout all of my field ops and even my 2 deployments. I learned that when it is cold outside, it doesn't really do a whole lot of good, regardless of how much gear you're wearing. If you've got to sleep outside, like in one of the great big giant tents, of course we call it a hooch, it doesn't really help to go outside and get in the warm for about 15, 20 minutes or 30 minutes and then turn right back around and go back inside. Basically, the only thing you're doing by going inside one of these warming buses is you're giving yourself a little bit of warmth to kind of, hey, look, man, it feels really, really good. It feels good to be here. But at the end of the day, you got to get out of the bus and you got to go right back in the tent where, guess what? You're just going to be cold again. That's the real truth of the matter. It's almost like somebody's trying to tell you, or maybe something your brain is trying to say, maybe you should learn to be warm on the street. I don't know if there's an ordinance in Chicago about getting a burn barrel or something like that and lighting it up. I mean, maybe you might want to try finding some land somewhere, or maybe what you should have done was just not hopped over the fence. Now, I know a lot of people are saying that these immigrants, these legals, that they feel like, maybe the city of Chicago should have done them better, or maybe they're not getting treated right. Which, of course, a lot of the Venezuelans are, in fact, leaving. But I want to say this right now. Don't you think that maybe it was a little bit more inconsiderate that you chose to take your children, you chose to take all your kids and stuff and march a very, very long distance across the U.S. border, across Mexico? I understand that it sounds brave to do so, but don't you think maybe it was a little bit more inconsiderate to take your kids, bring them up here to an area that's quite frankly cold as hell, knowing that you're not going to get any benefits or thinking you're not going to get any benefits? Of course, you missed the cutoff date. You didn't stay in tune. Maybe you might should have thought about that before you left Venezuela. And maybe you should have thought about it before you left any South American country as a whole, or even Mexico. Maybe you should have thought about that. You see, these parents, and I haven't really hit this before because I've been trying to be nice with the situation due to the algorithm and how the algorithm works. These parents, in a lot of ways, are kind of responsible for the little crisis that they have. You're taking small children, you're bringing them across the border, which, by the way, does sound honorable in a lot of ways, but you're not doing it legally. But then you're taking them to these very, very liberal cities that, quite frankly, are cold. I don't know if you guys know this or not, but the further north you go, the colder it gets. It's pretty well common sense. You don't have any cold weather gear. You got no coats. You got no way to stay warm. And you took your kids up to these areas expecting a bit of a handout, not realizing that not everybody can give you what it is that you want. And I understand that the people of Chicago voted for this. And I understand that if there's an actual humanitarian crisis and people start getting hurt or they die or whatnot, it's on the voters that live there as well, but it's also on the politicians. Definitely on the politicians, but people got to put those people in, so I think you guys may know where I'm going with this. Fact of the matter is, the real inconsiderate move here was not the city of Chicago. The real inconsiderate move was you. You, the person bringing your small children across the border to these very, very lib cities that, quite frankly, get cold in the wintertime, because maybe you guys are from a nation that doesn't really get cold very often. I know it does get cold in South America. The winter kind of flips, but still, at the same time, though, I think it was a little bit more inconsiderate of you people to actually do this, meaning I think it was more inconsiderate for you guys to carry your children and put your children in this situation. And at best, the place you can actually stay in is actually going to be a place that, quite frankly, let's just say is on very, very bad ground. So in a lot of ways, you are just as much responsible as the people of the city of Chicago for bringing this on to the nation. Fact of the matter is that this situation is also on you. Maybe you should take your time. Maybe you should apply the right way. Maybe you shouldn't come across the border. Maybe you should use some common sense. I mean, does this put my child in harm's way? Does this put me in harm's way? Does this put brothers and sisters? Does this put potential family members and friends who may not be able to take care of you? Does this right here not put them in harm's way? Also, as I've got to say one more time too, because the taxpayer that works their butt off and goes to work, they got to pay for you and they got to pay for your inconsiderate decisions. And one last thing, and I want to go ahead and be bluntly, and I mean bluntly clear with this final point on this matter. You coming here, doing this, doing it the wrong way, also creates a lot of division. And with that division, it creates a lot of jealousy. And people act very irrationally during spells of jealousy. There have been threats, there have been all kinds of things. And when people see you getting a certain handout or a certain benefit that nobody else is getting, that right there is going to cause problems. And now it's wintertime, it's about to get cold, and your inconsiderate decision to take your family across the border to get to a very, very blue city that's windy as hell, that's cold as hell, may result in people getting sick, possibly dying, and of course going hungry. And at the same exact time, because the politicians are stupid, because you did take advantage of their stupidity, this right here has got to be one of the lowest forms of evil I think I've ever seen, mostly due to somebody's inconsiderate nature. And for you to actually call people in the area inconsiderate, I think is absolutely 100% laughable, given the fact that you did this right here and took advantage of a weak, feeble old man who gave you a message. And quite frankly, you went and you took it because you did not have the capacity to think about the repercussions of your actual actions. It's almost like the devil was handing you an apple or something like that, and you just chose to go ahead and eat it. I mean, I have no idea what to say. Also, one more thing, too. This is not like in the old days where the United States of America, people would come over on a steamship with like $10 in their pocket. That's not the same situation. The United States, of course, has a much, much larger welfare state. And it's pretty obvious at this point in time that that really is what these people really and truly want. Not really work visas. They want the welfare benefits. With that rather being said, guys, make sure you guys hit the like button, subscribe, share the video. I know the ads on this video are, in fact, going to be limited. But please make sure you guys hit the like button, subscribe, leave a comment in the comment section. Please hit the notifications bell. I'll see you guys later.